Okay, let's go.
Have you ever gotten to the checkout line, grabbed a chocolate bar, and later on wondered, why did I even do that? Or maybe it's that late-night online shopping impulse. We all have these little money habits that feel kind of harmless, but man, they can be incredibly tough to break. So today, we're going to dig into the science of why that is, and more importantly, give you a real, practical plan to take back control. I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? We know that daily takeout habit isn't great for our wallet, or that we should be saving more, but actually changing it feels like this huge uphill battle. Well, the answer isn't about willpower. It's actually hidden deep inside our brain's wiring. And get this number is truly mind-boggling. About 40% of everything you do every single day is just a habit. Think about it, from how you brush your teeth to your commute to work. And yep, your spending patterns. These things are all running on autopilot in the background, totally subconscious. And that's the key. That lack of conscious thought is exactly what makes them so powerful and so difficult to change. So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at how your brain is basically on autopilot. Then, we'll dive into the cool science behind it all. After that, we'll talk strategy and why focusing on just one thing is the secret sauce. And we'll wrap it all up with a solid 5-step action plan you can start using like today. All right, first up, let's talk about your brain's autopilot system. See, there are all these invisible triggers around us every day that push us right into our habits. We don't even notice them most of the time, but believe me, they are powerfully shaping our decisions. And this right here is the fundamental building block of every single habit you have. It's called the habit loop. It's a super simple 3-step process. First, you got a cue. That's the trigger, like seeing candy at the checkout. That cue sparks a routine, grabbing the chocolate bar. And the routine gives you a reward, that little hit of sugar and satisfaction. Our brain gets hooked on chasing that reward, and boom, the loop is locked in. Okay, so if this loop is so powerful, why on earth would our brain create it in the first place? Well, that brings us right to our second section, the science of habits. And really, it all boils down to one simple concept: efficiency. And to really get this, we're going to bring in an expert, Dr. Surf. This guy has a fascinating background. He literally started his career as a professional hacker, breaking into banks and government systems. But then he turned those skills toward a much more complex system, the human brain. So what Dr. Surf's research shows is that habits are basically the brain's way of saving energy. Think about it like driving to work. The first few times you do it, you're paying close attention to every single turn. But after a while, your brain just automates it. It hardwires that route so you can think about your to-do list or what's for dinner. It's freeing up mental energy. And it does the exact same thing with our money habits. You can actually see this in brain scans. It's pretty amazing. When you're learning something new, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree. There's a storm of activity everywhere. But as that thing becomes a habit, brain activity just plummets. The whole process goes on autopilot, running on this super efficient, low-energy pathway. It's a brilliant system for survival, but it's also what makes changing a habit so tricky. So this brings us to the really practical part. If our habits are so deeply wired into our brains for efficiency, how in the world do we change them? Well, the secret is to not overwhelm your brain. The key is to focus on just one thing at a time. We've all made this mistake, right? We get this burst of motivation and decide to change everything. Okay, starting tomorrow, I'm going to stop buying takeout, start a retirement fund, and walk to work. It's too much for our brain to handle all at once. The much more effective approach: pick one, single habit, and pour all your energy into that. I absolutely love this way of thinking about it. The goal isn't to read an entire library overnight. No, the goal is just to build the habit of reading. So you start with 1 page a day. It feels tiny, almost too easy, but that small, consistent action builds momentum. And before you know it, you've finished a whole book, and then another. The exact same principle applies to saving money. It all starts small. And here is why starting small with your money is so unbelievably powerful. Putting away $50 a month might not feel like you're changing the world at first, but when you do it consistently, month after month, year after year, this little thing called compound interest takes over, and it is magic. That tiny habit grows into a seriously significant amount of savings over time. It's all about consistency. Okay, you get the science, you know you've got to start small. So, what's the actual plan? How do you do it? Well, here it is, a practical 5-step framework you can use to change any habit in your life. Now, this framework maps out the psychological journey of change. And what's interesting is that it doesn't start with action. It starts with awareness. You move from denial to contemplation to preparation. Then you get to action and finally termination. That's when the old habit really starts to fade away. So let's break down what each of these stages really looks like. The first 2 stages are all about what's going on in your head. You might start in denial, kind of pretending a habit isn't a big deal, but then you shift into contemplation. And this is the moment you just acknowledge it. Seriously, just saying to yourself, you know what? I have this habit and I don't like it. That is a massive and absolutely necessary first step. Next up, preparation and action. This is where the rubber meets the road. In preparation, you plan your new routine. What are you going to do instead? Then comes action. You actually do it. So for example, instead of grabbing that morning latte, you decide your new routine is to park a little farther away and have a mindful walk into the office. See? You're not just stopping an old habit, you're actively building a new, better one. And finally, we get to termination. This is the goal. This is the finish line. After you've practiced that new routine enough times, the craving for the old one just starts to fade. Your brain literally begins to snip the connection to the old habit and hardwires the new one. And that new, better behavior becomes your new normal, your new automatic. Now, going through these stages can be tough, for sure, but you don't have to do it all on your own. There are some really powerful tools to help you out. First, self-evaluation. Just make it a habit to check in with yourself and your finances regularly. Second, get some social support. Tell a friend what you're trying to do. It's amazing, but when you tell someone your goal, your brain literally creates a connection between that person and your success, which makes you way more likely to stick with it. And I just want to leave you with this final thought. A journey of 1,000 miles really does begin with a single step. The fact that you've stuck with us to this point, that you're even thinking about your habits and how you can improve them, that means you've already taken the hardest, most important step. You're already on your way. So what's the one small thing you're going to change today?